Hi, everyone. All right, today I want to talk about what makes for a good philosophical thesis statement and what sort of things you should try to avoid when writing a thesis statement for a philosophy paper. Okay, so imagine that you get the following assignment prompt from your instructor. Okay, so the assignment prompt is the following: write an essay on Aristotle's concept of the virtue of courage. Now, if you've never read any work by Aristotle, if you are not at all familiar with any of his arguments, don't worry, because this video is going to be focused on just how to craft a philosophical thesis statement. And I'm just using this assignment directive as sort of like a hypothetical sort of question or prompt that you might get, right? But you don't need to be familiar with Aristotle's arguments here or his works in order to follow through or follow along with the video, right? So suppose you said something like the following: I will present Aristotle's conception of the virtue of courage, consider an objection to it, and then offer a reply. Okay, so this is not a good thesis statement, right? Now, the reason for this is because it's more of a roadmap. It's more of a plan telling the reader, how the paper is going to go, how your arguments or how your essay is going to go, rather than a defensible position, right? So in a thesis statement, what you're trying to provide is, a clear, concise sort of statement of the argument that you're going to be presenting, right? So what is the position that you're arguing for? Well, this is not that, right? This is just saying like, here's, sort of the different sections of my paper. I'm going to present this philosopher's argument. I'm going to think about an objection, then I'm going to offer a reply. But it's not offering any sort of defensible position, right? Which is what we need in a thesis statement. Okay, secondly, suppose you said something like the following: I will argue that Aristotle's conception of the virtue of courage is persuasive. Okay, so this one is a little bit more on track, right? In the sense that you are saying, you're going to offer this particular argument. It's simply underdeveloped, right? So a philosophical thesis statement needs to provide something that's original, right? And provide some sort of thoughtful insight in response to the assignment prompt or directive. So when I say provide something original and something thoughtful, I'm not suggesting that what you do is, solve this huge philosophical question that has been, discussed for the past 2,500 years. Of course not, right? In a philosophy paper, we're asking you to address some very, very small, narrow portion of those larger questions, right? And it's your job as a student and as a writer of a philosophy paper to put forth some sort of new insight, right? So offer us some sort of new clarity, okay? So philosophy is a discussion, right? It's a dialogue that's ongoing. And when you write a philosophy paper, you are engaging in that dialogue. So you're trying to offer something new that hasn't been said before, right? And that doesn't mean that has to be groundbreaking or, something that is just going to be going to solve like this huge question or resolve this enormous debate that we've been having, right? But you're offering something new and something of substance, right? That's going to provide some sort of clarity or insight in regards to some more smaller, narrow focus question, right? And so simply saying that this person's argument is persuasive is not going to do that, unfortunately. Okay, let's look at another one. So let's say you said something like the following: I agree with Aristotle's conception of the virtue of courage. So just like the last one, right? It's missing this sort of philosophical substance. It's not offering us any sort of thoughtful or critical engagement with the argument. So simply saying that you agree with somebody is not, like, you need to provide us with reasons for why you agree, right? Like, what is it specifically that you're going to agree with and why, right? So offering those more specific details and providing like a deeper level of critical engagement is what is needed in a thesis statement. Okay, let's look at the fourth one. All right, Aristotle's account of the virtue of temperance has key moral implications for how we address the issue of addiction. All right, so you might be thinking to yourself like, hey, this actually sounds pretty good. Like, I mean, it sounds like it's going to offer an interesting view, right? An interesting position in response to, or in regards to the virtue of temperance. Sounds like it has something original to offer, right? Seems like a good thesis statement, but it is not. And the reason for that is because it's not on topic, right? So if you recall, the assignment directive asked you to think about Aristotle's conception of the virtue of courage, right? And this person is writing about the virtue of temperance, which is not at all on track, right? I mean, it's still about Aristotle's work and about his virtues, but again, when you get an assignment directive from your professor, they're expecting that you specifically and directly address the assignment directive, right? And that you're not going off topic and talking about something else, right? So that's another thing you want to keep in mind is when you're writing philosophy paper, you want to stay on topic and make sure that you are specifically and explicitly addressing the assignment directive. Okay. Let's look at one more. So let's say you said something like the following. Aristotle's claim that courage is noble is valid but unsound. Okay. So again, you might be thinking, hey, this sounds like a, not bad thesis statement. We are using the logical terms of validity and soundness. What could be wrong with it, right? But if you remember back to logic, keep in mind that validity and soundness are properties of arguments, right? Not properties of claims. So this author is asserting that some particular claim of Aristotle's is valid but unsound, right? But again, we can't use those terms to talk about claims, right? Those are properties of arguments. So we can say an argument is valid or sound, invalid, unsound, right? But we cannot apply those terms to an individual claim, right? An individual claim is either true or false. Okay. All right. So to recap then, what is a good philosophical thesis statement? Well, good philosophical thesis statement is going to be clear, right? So it's going to unambiguously assert some position, right, on some particular topic. And then it needs to be focused, right? So we need to be specifically addressing the assignment directive, right? Making sure that we are asserting something that is narrow enough that can be covered within the scope of our paper. And if you're addressing the assignment directive that you were given, then you should be within the scope, right? Because your instructor is going to assign you a sort of question that they think can be reasonably answered in the length of the assignment that they gave you. So it needs to be clear, it needs to be focused, and it needs to be expressing, like it says, an original, thoughtful, philosophically substantive position in response to the assignment prompt, right? So again, not that we're looking for some groundbreaking, earth-shattering insight here, but something new that you can offer to the discussion that has been going on for some time, right? So what is something new that you can personally bring to the table that somebody else might not have said before you, right? Or something, just some sort of new insight, some sort of new clarity that you can add to this dialogue. And then finally, a good thesis statement has to be arguable, right? So it needs to take a defensible position on some topic or some question that still remains unresolved, right? So something that you can provide an argument for, something that you can anticipate somebody raising objections in response to, and then you're ultimately going to be expected to overcome those objections, right? But yeah, so something that is arguable, debatable, yeah, so something that just is not resolved yet, but you are taking a stake in trying to resolve this particular question. Okay, so I hope that helped. If you have any questions, if you think there's anything that could be clarified further, please drop a comment down below. If this video was helpful to you and you'd like to see more like it, please click the like button. I will see you all next time. All right, bye.